together we have 4 children. We have always unschooled them, and so I want to do a little brief introduction, and then we'll talk a bit about some experiences, and then I would really, really love it if we wanted to move closer and make it more conversational, because this is definitely, a topic where people we all have an education and experiences, and a lot of people have questions about, what is this thing, this unschooling, and so I like to hear other people's input as well. So the introduction that I prepared is actually really brief, because the concept of unschooling is really simple, and that is that you facilitate the natural curiosity of humans. Like, everyone here is here because they're curious about this topic. So I'm going to facilitate you having more information about it, but you're going to be doing self-educating. You're the one that's going to be processing the data and deciding what works for you and what doesn't. And that is what we do as parents every day from the time their kids are little. The difference is that as a culture, we kind of have been told that around the magic age of 5, kids need to go be with other kids to continue their education. And that is really, really convenient for breaking the attachment for the parent. And as somebody who believes in freedom and personal liberty, I want my kids to be attached to me as a person who's given them good information and allowed them to have positive experiences until they're older and can take that responsibility for themselves. So again, this whole concept is very simple in that we facilitate their own interest and education happens.
As typical for unschooling parents, we're completely unprepared. As usual, I generally take things as they come and try and make everything into a learning experience for my children. So when we go on trips or have some sort of adventure or do something, we all work together to find reasonable, accommodation or overcome problems. It's the biggest thing, that seems to be lacking from conventional education is the just basic problem solving, day-to-day living. I had this big thing that occurred in my mind about how I had my children, work with me in a gun store. They've been shooting machine guns since they're 4 years old and all these other things. And they've had such a wide variety of experiences. I was wanting to market the unschooling to you guys, but that's not really why I am so passionate about it. Connie and I are Constance and I are passionate about it, so passionate that despite whatever issues might ever come in between us, we're both going to be on board with the unschooling. This is something that we both believe in deeply, and I believe at the core of it is the reason for it is because we want our children to be free people. When you bring them up in this indoctrinated system, where they're constantly looking for authority, constantly looking for acceptance and approval from peer groups and all these other things, then that later on leads them into issues. And it's a constant battle. I'm always seeking approval from these partners, from everyone else to try and make sure I'm doing the right thing. And I'm never necessarily thinking about myself. That's the drone mentality that's been driven into every single one of us. My children are not that way. And it's beautiful to see that when they want something, they will come up to me, and not be fearful of me. I'm still fearful of my own parents, all the times that I've been hit, all the times that I've been robbed, all the times that I've been degraded, that my dreams have been smashed before me. You can't do that because you're too young, and all these other things. And so the unschooling is, for us, a piece of parenting and treating our children like they're people. That's what they are. They're not things. They're not pets. They're not animals or anything like that. They're little people without all the experience you have. That doesn't make them lesser. And trying to look at them as, and that they're having needs and fulfilling them, and then facilitating whatever educational needs that they have if they're interested in. Our son was interested in playing Minecraft and wanted to do mods. He really needed to learn to read to do that. And you need these bits and pieces so we can help you do that. And then you can facilitate yourself to, so he built all sorts of Minecraft worlds and everything after he picked up how to read, gave him the basics, and there he went. And the amazing thing after that is that my daughters are learning from him how to read. It's all been a natural flow of them, knowing what they need, wanting to learn, almost being starved for things and just giving it to them and letting them have at it when they need it, when they want it, not forcing them into some sort of program that is completely unnatural for someone who's got the attention span of like 5 minutes. And so that's, we're working around that, working around them being children and letting them be children. Constantly telling them to be a child now rather than be, worried about growing up. This is the only time you're going to be a child. You're going to be a grown up for a long time. And so letting them have that opportunity and letting them be children and watching them grow into these fearless people. I've seen my children climb 100-foot sandstone cliffs, at 3 and 5 years old, and letting them, trust themselves that they can do that without filling them full of, my personal fears is, it's hard to let go. That's what I do. And
wasn't straight. Well, Mike touched on the peaceful parenting, and that's, when I signed up for this talk, I said I would like to talk about peaceful parenting or unschooling, and they put unschooling in the thing, but we only have 20 minutes, so I won't diverge onto that, but I highly encourage you, if you are unfamiliar with peaceful parenting, to look into that, because the two go hand in hand, and they're about trust and relationships, both unschooling and peaceful parenting. Like you trust that your child, when they're behaving in a way that is difficult for you as the adult, are not doing it because they're pushing buttons, they're not being manipulative, they really need your help. They need to feel, we all get overwhelmed with emotions, and we need help processing them. And as adults, we really didn't get many chances as children to learn how to process our emotions. We were hurt, we were told, you're okay, suck it up, get up, walk it off. We actually felt the pain. We knew we felt the pain. We were told we were wrong. So we are trying to heal our own past experiences while raising children. So we're constantly full of self-doubt. Are we doing this correctly? Is this the best opportunity for our children? Are we denying them something by not having them go to school? So I think that constant curiosity in ourselves is also a sign that we haven't lost that desire, that curiosity ourselves. And that's actually a good sign, despite it being extremely uncomfortable, to wonder, these 4 people have been entrusted to me, and I've got this such influence on their life, and I want to do the absolute best job I can. And so to bring it back to talking about unschooling and not peaceful parenting, I don't know if anybody, overall, how many people before you came in were familiar with unschooling? So it's a fairly talked about. The term unschooling was coined in the 80s by John Hall, who I highly recommend his books. It was actually my first experience learning about unschooling and how children learn and how children fail. They're both excellent books. And I also recommend the website sandradodd.com. She has 3 grown unschoolers, and the wealth of information of people that have come before us has just really been so helpful on this process. But the term unschooling came directly from the 7-Up commercials, like the Uncola. So this is this is not related to school. This is unschool. We're not trying to replicate anything that the schools do. And the interesting thing is that in the 80s, when the research was being done on how children learn, they actually found out that children learn exactly the way unschoolers are facilitating now. Children absorb information, children are curious, and so they tried to change the public schools to be more like that. The people that had been in the schools needed that structure that they'd already, So Sandra Dodd, I've actually got to listen to her speak here in Manchester after we moved, talks about, when she was a teacher, they were trying to implement this, and they got so much resistance from the people, from the adults, that they were not able to use the science that had been discovered on how people learn effectively. So she left teaching and raised her children, and she's very proud of how her children have turned out. And I often say that my goal is, you know, the world's changing so much, I can't possibly know what my children are going to need to know in 10 years when they're adults, but I do know that I want them to come to me and see me as a trusted source. And I don't have that relationship with my parents. And not because I don't think my parents loved me and tried their best, but because they couldn't step out of the mindset that the adults should tell the children how to live without checking in with the children what they really were looking for. So I think I left a point out there, and I'm sorry. I'll think of it.
I don't have a definition of unschooling.
You don't? Okay. Okay, so that was kind of the, thank you, that's exactly what I was leaving out. The unschooling is facilitating the natural curiosity of your children. So you're not doing anything at home that resembles school. If you read a lot of the people that have unschooled longer than we have, because our oldest is 11, so we're not out here claiming to be experts. We're still on the journey, but we are passionate about it. We don't teach our children. Our children learn. So it's such a different concept than school. The fact that there's actually a lot of people that won't refer to it as unschool because they don't even want to use the term school. They'll use like child-led learning or whole life learning. So the point of unschooling is to live like school does not exist. So everything that you do has benefit.
How do they learn to read?
I'm a homeschooling father of 5 children. My 3 boys all learn to read late. We read books, we read to our children. They become interested. They read based on their interests. Mostly they have gotten their arm trained for reading things like comic books. We ask questions, we answer them, but we've never done any kind of reading program. Now, the reason we did this is because I was a dyslexic, or I was branded dyslexic. I think it's a dysfunction of the system, not of the child. My son, who manifested very similar, my oldest son, very similar tendencies, we realized we didn't want to inflict on him what we could inflict on me by trying to force him to do something they're not ready for. So we made the choice to do unschooling, which meant we had to wait until he was like 12 years old before he showed evidence of being able to read a prose paragraph by himself. Now, he had been reading before that, words and bits and comic book phrases and stuff like that, but it's an exercise in commitment and patience to trust the children and trust God and nature that they actually are able to do this. And to the point where you actually have something that they own. It's their own. That they connected with their own synapses and connections from their own experience, rather than something we place upon them. It's the issue of structure.
And to bring it back to your question, when your son was 12, was he empty of information?
Oh, no. They were learning all the time, just learning in different ways. And when they saw a deficit in their ability to learn more that they desired, they would find the things they needed to learn to fill the deficit. And at that time, it became reading.
So we tend to think of education as what we've heard, as what schooling is. Math, reading, writing, science, history. Those are like the 5 common cores. But there are so many different types of intelligence. Like your 12-year-old probably had learned how to get along with the 4 siblings by that point. And that's something that is not recognized as a special kind of a skill. But it's extremely important to be able to get along in groups. But they don't grade for that. You know, I mean, they get the little S's and O's, or they did way back when I was in school about that. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we could break everything down and say, okay, our kids learned math by doing this, but that's not the point of unschooling. The point of unschooling is that our kids are also learning things that can't be labeled or can be labeled if I wanted to, but I don't need to because I trust the process that they are becoming more educated.
Is homeschooling the same as unschooling?
No.
Okay.
So when you do homeschooling, you can bring the tools of formal education into your home and try to replicate.
Okay, and you're not bringing any of those to
No, that's not true.
We have brought in some tools, you know, books, educational materials and stuff like that to let them have. But it's not like just sitting them down in front of a blackboard in the basement and trying to get them to, you know, do all the things that they do at school. It's, you know, we do bring educational materials in for them, books, puzzles and all that sort of thing. But
They're interested in life. So there are a lot of things about life that have been organized by people into books and categories that make it easier for them to understand the things that they want. That's information that they seek out the same way we do when we go online and we Google for something. They have the same skills except that they're younger, so they need facilitated in getting that information. Does that answer? Because I've got a lot of other people that are asking questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, my son started to read at 16 months, and the last thing I want to see is taken to a public school where they're going to dumb it down to spit into the bottom 40% so that the other kids can catch up. That happened to a kid that was in my kindergarten class. The teacher literally told Roger to be quiet when we were asking questions about what's going on the board. And I can't imagine Roger got the greatest education out of the best private school in Bradenton, Florida in 1977 or whenever it was I was in kindergarten. So, I mean, that's, I'm not letting those people have my kid. They're not going to turn me into a dum-dum.
Our son did go to a charter school for about 6 weeks before he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I just heard that one of my friends who I talked to extensively about that charter school because her son got accepted. They're doing the exact same thing. He's extremely gifted. It's a charter school. It's project, it's arts and science based, and they're trying to hold him back because that's what they, I'm not even sure what the reasoning is.
Do you run into any problems with the state doing things?
No, unschooling is legal in all 50 states. There are different requirements for different states. Like New Hampshire, you have to keep a portfolio of what you're working on, but because education is part of life for us, that's basically we're recording our life.
I'm really interested in, and I've only seen a little bit of unschooling outside the home. So I went working, and I like that unschooling. I don't necessarily associate it with homeschooling at all.
You're talking about democratic schools.
Yes.
The
yes.
Sudbury.
There's one in Massachusetts, and I haven't seen anything in New Hampshire, and that fits our family so perfectly. You know if there's anything else like that.
Do you know, Marcus, whether there, I think that there was some talk about trying to start one.
I've heard that.
But
I'd really like to see it.
But I don't think.
Me too.
There's a Quaker school down in Ringe, but it closed up relatively recently, a few years ago. And we were interested in that. There's nothing else that I would believe. There's nothing within 45 minutes of my house that
Oh, I think there actually, I think there's some, the White Mountains, I think there is. Yeah, there is a preschool in somewhere in the right part of the state.
You're gonna go away from it.
No, and that's, you know, like, as more people move to New Hampshire, we'll have the population to put together.
Right, it can't be that much, because the cool thing about a Sudbury school is that you don't need, 20 kids that are in 4th grade. You just need 20 kids, and those 20 kids can be of all different ages, and it's, I really hate the idea that kids are segregated into sections. When I was in school, it was in 1st grade, I had a friend who was in 3rd grade, and the teacher told me to, go along, you can't wait here for your 3rd grade friend, you're not supposed to be talking to them. They don't want you to talk to them, they want to keep the kids segregated, and that's bad news.
This concept of a preschool, how many of them, of what you know of existing already, came about through sort of parents forming collectives, or how much of it came about as like a business plan from somebody that maybe didn't have children?
I have read about the Summerhill School in England, and I know of the Salisbury School, but I'm not an expert. And quite honestly, it's two very different concepts. And if you talk to unschoolers, they are interested in being the person there for their child. So, I'm collectivizing here, obviously. But when somebody is talking about unschooling and somebody says, like you did, like I still need the children to go somewhere else. Most unschoolers will distinguish that as a similar type of education style, but it's not unschooling.
Like preschooling, or like
Right.
preschool.
Right.
But of those free schools, like not unschools, but preschools that you're aware of, like, did they, a lot of them get started as like a critical mass of parents in a neighborhood collectively organize this, or has it generally been?
I don't have a lot, I mean, when we first moved, or were moving to New Hampshire, I did find like the one that I said in the White Mountains, and I think that one started that way. I read the book about Neil Summerhill starting his school in like the 1930s, I believe it was, and his daughter was still running it, but I can't remember the history.
If both parents are working outside the home 9 to 5, can unschooling work?
Yes.
How?
Well, when we both worked, we had childcare. But because, like I said, the idea of learning happens. So learning happens because we're not we weren't asking our childcare to instill knowledge into our children. We were asking our childcare to keep our children safe and to keep them, what's the word, enriched while we were there. And then, of course, you know, the amount of education, like schooling time that a public school does is like under 2 hours a day. Our kids are enriched way more than 2 hours a day, even if they're watching cartoons 8 hours a day, which has happened. So, you know, and then of course, we have an idea in our society that cartoons have no value. Cartoons have tremendous value. You just have to look for it with an open mind. Like, you have to see what it is that your child is getting out of this cartoon. Why are they drawn to this particular cartoon? Or is it, you know, you have to get back to that kind of curiosity that kids are born with, to be able to see it through their eyes. And then the connection you make with somebody when you see what they see is just so powerful that then you are exactly that, a trusted advisor that most parents want to be to their children, because you've made that connection first in the relationship.
There are other opportunities. You know, while we were both working, our housekeeper was actually Russian, so I had asked her to speak Russian to my children. You know, they didn't necessarily learn all the words, but they hearing this foreign language and stuff, they pick up words in foreign languages now really quickly. And my son's been teaching himself German. You know, so he's been saying ja and nein, you know, a few other words, but he's got it in his head. He's able to do these things so much more easily than it was for me. You know, I had 4 years of German through high school. I barely got past ja and nein in Czech.
He really will want to say something in German, go in, Google it, say it, and come out and tell me. Like when he doesn't want to answer me in English, he just goes, finds the answer in German, and comes back and tells me. And knows that I won't have a clue what he just said to me. And it's a huge joke, because I don't know German.
But they need to pick up a lot of these things. And some of the other opportunities that they've had, I was running a store, and I actually had set aside space for my children to be able to come to the store. You know, it was a firearms retail place. And some of the things that they managed to pick up during that time, you know, my son wants to start a business. He understands that you have to buy things at a certain cost, sell for more, be able to market up. You know, he understands, you know, getting into inventory and all these things. At 11 years old, he's got a better idea of the concept of business than most adults do. You know, of how things work, you know, the taxes. You know, he understands that, you know, taxes are bullshit. You know, he's got it in his, you know, he understands that a lot of these other issues that we're running to day to day are, you know, not, you know, as far as the government interference with our lives, you know, he recognizes that thing instead of just accepts it. He recognizes it, sees it, and is going to be part of the change in the future as things move forward, as people start having these ideas and realizing that issues like, you know, government intervention in every aspect of your life is a bad thing. That's something that they have grasp of at a very young age. My 7-year-old was mentioned it. You know, my 4-year-old's not quite there, but you know, she's also very astute in other ways. And you know, they've been exposed to so many people. They're not just stuck with their own peer group, their own age group, their own sex, their own whatever. You know, only the people that are just, you know, into whatever sport they are. and they're allowed to focus on the things that make them what they're passionate about. And it's a lot of the problem with the way school systems are now is they quell that passion that you have for life. Anybody that's got some sort of a different idea from the rest of the group is immediately nailed down and held back. His son, wasn't able to read. He would have been held back. It doesn't mean he's any less intelligent, but he would have been ridiculed in a school setting. Someone who's Mark's son, who's starting to read now, would be ridiculed and held back, or not allowed to really pursue or reach his potential. The school system sort of holds you to this lowest standard, and if you are a nerd or have some sort of disability or whatever, that ends up being the focus of your life. And it's hilarious because some of the people that have the greatest influence over the world are people that are outliers.
Well, it's nice to say that our son, even though he's been reading since he was very, very young, physically he's got some delays. So, it's like one area of his brain is excelling, and the other one is not quite, what people would call normal, or, at the normal level. So, our brains develop at different rates, and I really, as much as I want, the other part of his brain to be stimulated also, I don't want to squash this kind of part of his brain. I want to keep that going. So, there's different aspects to learn, and I don't want, just because he excels in one, he isn't at another, for him, for both of those to be, hampered.
I'm just going to say we are over 20 minutes, right, Jack?
Yes.
And I would love to keep this conversation going, but as I said in the beginning, we're not experts. We're just facilitating the conversation today. So I encourage you to read more, to talk, and to quote Sandra Dodd, read a little, try a little. I'm going to forget it right now. But basically, it's try a little bit, watch, observe, see what happens, let go a little bit, try something new, see how it works. Don't throw out the rule book all at once. Kids can't handle that, but you can try. Thank you.